We heard from the foreign minister here in China, Wang Yi, warning about a new Cold War. You were here in Beijing when Henry Kissinger talked about being in the foothills of a Cold War. Is that a useful framing for how the relationship now stands between the US and China? How dangerous is this moment?
Well, the relationship has become extremely hostile and adversarial. It's no longer just competition. It's really competition with the aim of one beating the other and trying to contain the other. So it's very disappointing that, of course, the pandemic did not stimulate a reset of U.S.-China relations and an effort to cooperate on saving lives worldwide. Instead, it actually has sent the relationship even deeper into a downward spiral.
Is the security law that Beijing seems determined to push through when it comes to Hong Kong just another further erosion of that city's autonomy, or is it a potential tipping point now in the relationship between Beijing and the US and other Western countries?
Well, it's not clear to me how the Trump administration intends to respond to this bombshell of Beijing carrying out a security law over the heads of the LegCo in Hong Kong and effectively disregarding the basic law. So, there are so many different issues on the agenda of U.S.-China relations, and the Trump administration has been pushing back on all fronts in every continent, every domain. And it's not yet clear to me how much President Trump himself or others in the Trump administration really care about Hong Kong. Certainly in Congress, the reaction has been very strong. And I definitely expect some new legislation from the Congress to hit back. Now, unfortunately, there is a need to assess whether or not Hong Kong still has the autonomy needed for the United States to treat it as a separate economy, many of its regulations. And if they say no, because it does seem pretty obvious that Hong Kong's autonomy has been abridged now, then the punishment is actually going to fall on the people of Hong Kong, not on Beijing. So I think some members of Congress are trying to find another approach that would hit back more against the decision makers in Beijing than the people in Hong Kong.
Right. How do you, I guess, essentially penalize China without hurting Hong Kong in the process? That's going to be a tough one for a lot of policymakers over there, Susan. I'm just wondering, a lot of developed countries, they do have national security bills. Macau has had a national security bill or law since 2009, and it hasn't had a whole lot of problems there. What lessons can Hong Kong actually take from that? Do you think that the Macau model can be replicated?
No, Macau is very, very different from Hong Kong. Macau, the PRC government has really been calling the shots in Macau for a very long time, even though it formally has autonomy. So it's really quite a different situation.
And, Hong Kong, of course, does have a lot more freedoms here than, of course, what you're seeing in the mainland: freedom of speech, independent judiciary, rule of law, free ports. The list goes on. How far do you think China plans to go in taking away these freedoms? And can Hong Kong still thrive if some of these freedoms are taken away?
Well, That's a decision that many international businesses will have to decide. Are they going to stay in Hong Kong? Are they going to move to Singapore? The new national security legislation, of course, we have to see how it turns out, what the details are, but it does appear that the PRC security agencies will establish themselves in Hong Kong. And as you see from arrests of Democrats in Hong Kong recently, and the kind of criticism of these folks, that they have been accused of subversion of Hong Kong. And so I expect it'll be very, very difficult for the press, for civil society, to function in the way it has functioned in Hong Kong for all this time. I think that you will see Hong Kong will become increasingly just like another city in the PRC. I do think this is a major shift, a major inflection point.
A major inflection point. It seems that if there is any glue holding the US and China together, it is the trade one, or the phase one trade deal, I should say. Do you expect that trade deal to hold up until those elections in November?
I think both sides will try to carry it out as best they can. It'll be difficult for China to make the purchases given the state of their economy, but right now, President Trump is very focused on winning the November election, and there's so much criticism of how he handled COVID that he's going to try to maintain at least a facade of the trade deal. So I don't think that either side will walk away from it.